Well, good morning. The heat wave has generated some really interesting behaviour, don't you think? Been lovely observations. Lady ate my notes for this episode in sheer frustration. My lovely notebook just in pieces, confetti on the floor, with a smug looking dog at the heart of those pieces. She even stared me out while she did it. And afterwards, her face suggested disappointment that the effort just wasn't worth it. They hadn't been as tasty as she'd hoped. Serves her right. She is a Belgian Malinois, supposed to be one of the most intelligent dogs on the planet, but clearly not in a heat wave when she doesn't know where to focus all of that energy. My husband Bill said, well, clearly she has opinions. Maybe you need to change the subject matter a little, which is probably the most diplomatic thing he's ever said about Lady. And he has said some things, I tell you. So I rebuilt them and I hope that you enjoy and value this version. I think that you can learn from everything that happens. So this was either a lesson about resilience and dealing with frustration, or maybe a lesson about Lady knowing something I didn't. I haven't decided which yet. Maybe you can decide. Right, so today we're talking about influence. The wall that has been built brick by brick since COVID, and what you can do about it to create your influence and extend your opportunities. Welcome to Unshakable Her, helping ambitious women who are constantly second-guessing themselves to build the daily habits that compound into unshakable confidence. I'm Caroline Esterson and I'm in your corner. And today it's Monday, which means I'm telling a story. Because the best way to see your own situation clearly is to listen to someone else live it first. Then we'll crack open the unspoken rulebook of how power, promotion and visibility really move, so that you can stop second guessing and start moving away from imposter syndrome and towards the influence you deserve. Grab your coffee. Let's go. So today, here's what you're going to get. 1, you are going to meet Rachel. And there are 4 different versions of Rachel in this episode. The fixer, the expert, the reliable one, and of course, the people pleaser. And I want you to notice which version resonates with you. That's the one this episode is for. And 2, you're going to understand why influence is not about being the most popular person in the room, why the calendar is actively working against your leadership and promotional prospects, and what the gap between warmth and weight is actually costing you. And then 3, you're going to get the question that changed everything for Rachel. One question to help you move forward. Now, before we dig into Rachel's story, let me explore something that is our backdrop today. Frankly, something's gone wrong in the way that we work, and I don't think we've talked about it enough yet. So I want you to cast your mind back to pre-COVID, when hybrid working was just a little experiment, and think about where the interesting things actually happened then. You know, those conversations, the looks even that told you everything about how someone was feeling without even saying a word. Things like the 5 minutes before the big meeting when you arrived, just before giving you the opportunity to chat to someone senior, and they said something casual that meant everything. Or bumping into someone you haven't chatted to for a while, and you met them on the stairs or in the loo. The coffee queue that turned into a 30-second pitch for an idea that you've been sitting on for weeks. Or the moment someone said, you should have talked to so-and-so about that, and your network quietly and valuably grew. Those conversations, those weren't ever on the calendar. They didn't have an agenda. Nobody sent a follow-up email. And they are absolutely, inarguably, the place where half of the most important professional relationships in your career get built. And then, what do? We put everyone on Teams. And rather quickly, the working day became a series of formal interactions with a conversation being booked in advance, everyone being entered into the room at the same time, an agenda with action points, and absolutely nowhere for the informal thing to happen, that side conversation or accidental connection. That moment of human contact that was not optimized or structured or timed to end at the half hour. We didn't mean to eliminate those margins. We just kept filling them in. And here's why it matters for this trilogy this week. Because real influence, the kind that actually makes things happen and gets you seen by the people who matter, real influence, that influence, is built in those margins, in those unscheduled moments, in the conversations that start with, hey, how was your weekend? And then 6 months later, with you being the first person someone thinks of when something important comes up. We've not just lost the coffee queue chat, we've lost the incubator for influence. Those small moments that prepare us for the big opportunity. Now, every moment feels loaded with significance. It means that you need to prepare for everything. Nobody put it on the change management plan because nobody noticed it was even happening until it was already gone, fully eroded from the way that we work. Now, I want to share a principle that Wendy and I have. We very much believe that whenever you're in front of someone, even in the informal setting, you're on stage, everything, absolutely everything is an opportunity to influence. So put that game face on and don't waste a single opportunity. So with that in mind, let's meet Rachel, because she felt all of this before she had the language for it. And what she did about it is the whole point of this episode. Let me introduce you to some people you might recognise. We all lean into typical behaviours. That's our brain protecting us and helping us create new shortcuts that mean we can cope in this crazy, messy world in which we live, work and play. And there are 4 of them I want to explore with you today. First up, we have the fixer. Who's a fixer out there? The one who gets called on at 9 at night when something's gone wrong and they need someone calm and capable to resolve it. She always delivers. When a team member comes to her, the first thing she wants to do is make life easier for them and tries to solve the problem fast. She is also somehow at the same level she was 4 years ago because organisations don't promote the person who fixes things. They promote the person who stops things breaking in the first place, and nobody told her those were different jobs. Does that resonate with you? If not, maybe this one does. The expert. The one whose calendar is wall to wall with other people's problems because she's the only person who actually understands how any of this stuff works. She's indispensable and she knows it. Her organisation also knows it. And her organisation has absolutely no intention of promoting her away from the place where she is most useful. Indispensable, it turns out, is a cage. Is that you? Maybe? Maybe not. Well, let's look at the third one, the reliable one. She is never late, always prepared and unflappable. She gets described in every review as incredibly valuable, gets passed over for the role that would have let her prove what she is actually capable of, because reliable reads as steady. And steady, well, that doesn't read as ready. So we move on to the fourth one, the people pleaser. She says yes when she would rather have said no. She's got a to-do list that is 80% of the people's priorities on a good week, is described by everyone around her as incredibly supportive, but is described by no one as someone who drives the agenda. The cruel irony is that she's usually one of the most emotionally intelligent people in the building. She reads rooms brilliantly. She just has all of that skill pointed in the wrong direction. Now, these aren't failure stories. These are stories about what happens when someone is extraordinarily good at the visible, measurable, deliverable parts of the job and has never been given the language or the map for the part that actually gets you promoted. Now, Rachel has been all 4 of these in different times in her career, but underneath it all, one stands out as her foundational stone. She's 44, she spent 18 years in learning and development, and the version of her that I want to tell you about is the one sitting at head of learning and development 4 years in, applied for director 18 months ago and didn't get it. The feedback she received, delivered kindly, I'm told, with what I assume was a sympathetic impression, was this. Rachel, everyone loves you, but we need someone who can really drive change at a senior level. She drove home that evening with that sentence on loop. Everyone loves you. She thought that was the point. She'd spent 18 years building the kind of professional reputation most people would give a great deal for. Warm, trusted, reliable, the person that everyone came to. And the organisation had just told her, very politely, that none of that was the thing that they were promoting. She came to me about 3 months later, and the first thing she said before we'd even sat down properly was this. You know what? I just don't think I'm political enough. I need to get better at playing the game. And I stopped her because she was about to spend the next 6 months becoming a worse version of herself in an attempt to fix a problem that she'd not correctly identified. Rachel didn't need to play a game. She needed to understand what influence actually is, because she'd spent 18 years building something valuable and genuine, but completely missed the thing sitting next to it. So here's the distinction. Being liked is when people enjoy your company and trust your intentions. It's relational, warm, and valuable, but it's passive. It's the kind of energy that makes people feel good but doesn't go anywhere. Influence, well, that's a little bit different. Influence is the thing that makes people do things differently because of you. Not because you told them to, but because you made them want to. It's the power that works even when you're not in the room with them. And it's the gap between your job title and your actual impact. Rachel had enormous amounts of the first thing. She'd been building it methodically for 18 years, but she had very little of the second. And let me take you back to the context that I put you in right at the start of this episode. Here's why the calendar matters. The informal moments, those coffee queues, corridor, 5 minutes before the meeting, those were the places where influence used to get built almost accidentally. When someone senior overheard you say something sharp and filed it away, where you had a conversation that wasn't about the work and ended up changing how someone thought about you. It was the scaffolding for your influence. And it's just not there anymore. Rachel had lost all of those moments. Her days, maybe a little bit like yours, were back to back. Every interaction was formal, structured, purposeful. And she was delivering brilliantly in every meeting, but invisible in the gap. And in a world of back-to-back calendars, the gaps are where your influence lives. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She was doing everything right, but in the wrong places, if that makes sense. So she started asking a different question. Instead of, how can I help you? She started asking herself, what is it that they actually need that nobody else is currently giving them? And how does what I do connect to that person? Those two questions shifted her from being the person people liked to being the person that people needed. And needed is what gets you promoted. The unspoken rule book. Know the rules, own the game. So today's unspoken rulebook entry is written in slightly light grey font, because if it were actually highlighted, action would need to be taken by the organisation. And on top of a busy job, no one needs more action points to add, do they? So it's this. Warmth without weight is not influence. It's just a very comfortable place for you to be stuck. And here's why this rule is invisible. Because warmth feels like a virtue. Being trusted feels like progress. No one's going to tell you that being universally liked is working against you, because on its own, it's not. It's good. It is genuinely good. Trust is the foundation that we need to build. But the calendar has made it dangerous in a way that it never used to be, because when there were margins, those informal moments that we've already described, warmth had somewhere to go. It could turn into something. It could become influential, almost by accident. But now those margins are gone and every interaction is formal. there's nowhere for your warmth to compound. It doesn't convert into opportunities. Rachel was giving people what they asked for. The most influential people give people what they actually need, and those aren't the same thing. And the gap between them, well, that's where leadership lives. So let me ask you, where in your career are you being warm when you could be useful? Where are the margins in your week, those unscheduled moments, and are you using them wisely? Remember, whenever you're in earshot or eyeshot, you're on stage. Go use it well. This is the place your influence can compound. So I made you 3 promises at the start. I said you'd meet Rachel and recognise something. Did you find your version? Are you the fixer, the expert, the reliable one, or the people pleaser? Or maybe some combination that feels uncomfortably specific? Good. That's information. That's data that you could work with. I said you'd understand the gap between warmth and weight and why the calendar is making it worse. The calendar didn't create the gap, but it removed the informal moments where the gap used to close naturally. Now you've got to close it deliberately, which is what Wednesday is for. And I said you'd get Rachel's question. Here it is. What do they actually need that nobody is currently giving them? And how does what do I do connect to that? Take that into your next interaction, because that's where your influence will grow. So moving on, let me give you a taster for Wednesday, where we go into the science as usual. Why influence built in the informal moments is neurologically different from the influence built in those formal ones. Why your brain trusts people differently depending on where and how it met them. And why the organisations that eliminated the margins didn't just lose the chatter, they lost something that cannot be replicated on a calendar. We're also going to go into something personal, a story from when I was 27 on the M6 motorway going south with a phone call I wasn't expecting and a decision I nearly made that would have changed everything in the wrong direction. Looking forward to it. Wednesday, see you there. That's it for today. But before you go, if a woman came to mind while you were listening, maybe the one who's stuck, the one circling a promotion, the one you know is quietly wondering if it's just her, send her this episode, because she gets to feel less alone and you get to be the woman who refused to let her stay stuck, who reached back instead of scrolling on. Be in her corner like I'm in yours. See you Wednesday.